is an NBC News special report. The Great Quake of '94. Reporting from Los Angeles, Tom Brokaw.
Good evening once again from San Fernando Valley of Southern California. I'm getting to the point where I can't even talk. The earthquake has affected my ability to communicate to you. I'll tell you tonight, however, that there are a lot of people in this city who are sleeping very uneasily, if they're sleeping at all. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are outside tonight. They're camped in campgrounds and in parks and just on sidewalks, rather than go back inside after that major earthquake, 6.6 on the Richter scale at 4:30 this morning Pacific time, not too far from this campground. It has had a devastating effect on Southern California. 24 to 27 people are dead. 5 major highways have been broken severely. A number of businesses, an untold number at this time, are so damaged that they won't be able to open for several days at least. Most of the schools in this area have been closed, and Southern California is already battered by a distressed economy, by the fires of last fall, and by the riots of 1992. So there's a great deal to be done to rebuild psychologically and physically from this earthquake. The federal government is now here in force, represented in part by the man who runs FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Administration. That's James Lee Witt. He's in Pasadena tonight. Mr. Witt, first of all, welcome to California, and tell us, what are the best estimates that you're getting so far on the amount of damage that has been done here?
Well, Tom, there's a tremendous amount of damage, and also we just landed here and just are now fixing to get our briefing as well. I talked to President Clinton this morning several times, and he's been very concerned about this and has sent a team out here, not only myself, but Secretary Assistant Earls with HUD, and also Secretary of Pena from the Department of Transportation, to help coordinate the resources that they may need at the state and local level as well. But it's kind of premature on the estimated cost and as yet, but we're just here to make sure that the resources are available to the state and to help take care of the disaster victims.
Well, the fact of the matter is there have to be limits on those resources. You're already under strain with the federal budget operating at a deficit. You were in the Midwest when last we saw each other, where they had those devastating floods. How much can California count on this time?
Well, we're okay for now for the immediate response. We'll have to wait and see what the damage assessments and how many dollars we're looking at, and then possibility to go back to let them know just exactly what the cost is. We do still have enough money to be able to do the response. We also have enough people to do the response. So right now we're coordinating with the state and the locals to try to set up the disaster application centers for the victims.
Well, what does that mean, Mr. Witt, that you'll be able to provide kind of emergency grants and loans to small business owners and to some homeowners as well?
Yes, what we'll be doing, we'll be pooling all of the federal resources that we have available, not only through FEMA, but HUD, VA, Department of Transportation, whatever it may need to be able to meet the need here.
I know that you've had a special burden following Hurricane Andrew in Florida when the Clinton administration came in. Are you confident now that you have so streamlined the procedures that the people who come to you for help will get that help rather rapidly?
I think so. I think we've proven that, not only Midwest floods, but also the response we did on the California fires. We actually had the disaster centers, the application center set up within 2.5 days. I actually had checks issued for temporary housing out to victims within 2.5 days. So we've already opened our tele-registration centers where people can call in for individual assistance to make applications, and we have a 1-800 number for that, and also for the hearing impaired as well.
All right, thank you very much, James Lee Witt. We know that you'll be very busy throughout the night, and tomorrow we'll probably see you tomorrow on NBC Nightly News. We want to go now to the governor of this state, Pete Wilson. Governor, we've got to stop meeting like this. The last time I saw you in person was on a ridge in Laguna Beach, California, which had been burned out. Now you face still another disaster. What's your greatest immediate need tonight from people like James Lee Witt representing the federal government?
The most immediate need, Tom, from James Lee Witt and from the federal government is the kind of assistance that he was just describing. They will need to cut checks to people who are without housing, without shelter, in some cases without money. It is the temporary assistance. And then, of course, as you know, they also set up in a joint state-federal center that permits them to become applicants for low-interest loans to rebuild a home or to rebuild a small business. Additionally, though, one of the things that you didn't discuss with him, the public sector has suffered tremendous damage in this. We can't begin to know just yet how much, but under the law, there's also a sharing of the replacement costs for things like the freeways that are involved, and that will be a part of the role of the federal government.
Well, now that you've had a full day to size up the amount of damage that has been done, Governor, and you look at those freeways especially, they are the lifelines for Southern California. Aren't you going to have just a traffic chaos here for many months to come?
Some will have for certain major inconvenience. There's no question about that. Interstate 10, I-10, the Santa Monica Freeway is one of the most heavily trafficked thoroughfares in the world. It is damaged and severely damaged, not beyond repair, but the repair will take time. It takes to build a new freeway a year to 18 months. It doesn't take very long to demolish the segment that has been damaged and to remove it. That can take a week, 10 days. It takes perhaps a year to replace the damaged segment. And we have two bridges, both of which are severely damaged, both of which have to be demolished, the rubble removed, and then that process of rebuilding has to begin. We've got that in about 5 different places. There's no question that it will be disruptive, that it will produce major inconvenience. We simply will have to ask people to suffer it in as good grace as possible and to plan ahead. We have all been convenienced by the freeways. We will now be reminded of exactly how great that convenience has been when, in fact, we're denied the uninterrupted use of them. But we will manage because we have no choice. We will get through this. Once again, Californians are resilient, and it's a good thing because they've needed to be.
Governor, San Francisco is just now beginning to recover from the earthquake from 4 years ago, kind of psychologically and certainly economically. You're operating a state with a huge budget deficit. You're under enormous strain because of the defense industry cutbacks in California. The job losses have been going out of here. How in the world do you begin to turn this around economically? Because there are going to be dollars that you're going to have to generate here, and you're going to have a lot of lost income.
Well, as a matter of fact, this year we will see, I think, not the end of job loss from those defense cuts. That will continue. It's a little bit like a time-release capsule. And it does hurt. Half of the 900,000 jobs California has lost since May of 1990 have come from those defense cuts, those decisions that are not made here. But from every economic survey that I've seen, it's forecasted that this year, 1994, will be the year in which California begins to recover. And in fact, the chief economist of the Bank of America has said so. The UCLA Graduate Management School has said so. They are slightly more optimistic than we at the state level. You're right, we didn't need this. This will be an added blow. On the other hand, we will get through it. And it will produce inconvenience. It will produce some economic disruption. But our chief concern at the moment really has to do with trying to prevent any further loss of life and trying to restore services, particularly services of water and power, so that people can get back into their homes and get on with their lives. The rest of it, the restoration of these damaged segments of freeway, we will simply do. And I would point out that I think we'll probably be able to do it more rapidly here in Los Angeles than occurred in Northern California, because in these cases what we're doing is not getting into any public debate about a realignment, as was true in the case of the Cypress Freeway. That took quite a bit of time. Here we're replacing a box, a segment that is damaged, but there's no dispute about where it goes.
Governor, finally, a quick question. How are you doing on the law and order front tonight? Any reports of looting or any problems of any kind?
No, I haven't heard any. We have had 1,000 or so National Guardsmen in armories in the Los Angeles area available for deployment at the direction of local law enforcement authorities. And they have made some minimal deployment, but I don't think very much, so I gather that the need has been even less than we foresaw that it might be. We have erred on the side of caution, and I think rightly so. It's much better to have the troops in place to be able to assist local law enforcement in things like point security and patrols than to not have them here.
All right, thank you very much, Governor Pete Wilson. It goes without saying that everyone in the country wishes California the best as it tries to recover from one more trauma. Let's go back out to Pasadena now. Another one of the federal officials who has come out here as a man who can do something about housing. He is the Secretary of Housing, Henry Cisneros, who's with us now. Mr. Secretary, welcome to California, first of all. And what is it that you can do for those homeowners who lost homes either to the earthquake damage or to fires today as a result of the earthquake?
Well, Tom, there's a number of things that we can do immediately. The first is to work with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. You've just talked to James Lee Witt. He will be the coordinator of the overall federal response out here to use the emergency programs that exist to make funds available so that people can get temporary rental and move into housing. We can also make available other housing that the federal government has, public housing and FHA units and even other RTC and others that might be available so that people can move into. And then finally, we can use other programs to begin to allow people to rebuild for the long run. We've had some experience that we've gained from Hurricane Andrew and in the Midwest in the last year that has helped us identify how you get people to housing. The immediate need, of course, is for shelters for those who are unhoused immediately. The Red Cross, as well as nonprofit groups, churches, and others are a big help there.
Well, and what kind of a warning do you have for homeowners who probably will be assaulted beginning tomorrow by contractors, given the experiences of the people in southern Florida and in the Midwest after the floods?
Well, some of the things that we saw in Florida and other places was the immediate increase in the cost of building materials, because people do tend to take advantage when they can, and you have to be careful of that, as well as a fly-by-night contractors come with all kinds of promises. But my sense is that people in this area are very sophisticated. They've lived through these things before. This is a big market, and we're not going to see the dramatic increase in building materials that we might have seen in Florida, for example.
Give us a calendar, if you can. How soon will you have your offices up and ready for application, and how soon after that will some homeowners be able to get some cash in hand to begin to deal with their problems?
The goal is, and the reason why I'm here with James Lee Witt and with Federico Pena, the Secretary of Transportation, and others, is to put the federal response in place immediately, literally in the next 24 to 48 hours, so people can begin to go to those offices. And then immediately, as soon as they're there, we get the appropriate approvals, days, hours, ought to be able to get some assistance. The President has insisted from the first that he heard of this, which was within 30